stand this book. I don't want to read it. I'm actually really liking this one so far. I'm really loving it. Hey friends, how's it going? My name is Gabby. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be starting on a very exciting video project, and that is going to be reading Reese Witherspoon's book club picks for the year of 2024. I had this idea at the beginning of the year that I wanted to do a dedicated video series this year to reading all of Reese Witherspoon's book club picks, and so this is going to be the first installment in what should hopefully be a video series of 3. So in today's video, we're going to be reading the first 4 book club picks that she's had so far this year from January, February, March, and April. And I feel like this is a video series that I've been wanting to do for a long time because not only do I absolutely love Reese Witherspoon, I really just admire her as an actress and a human. I just think she's really cool, and I've been wanting to do this for a while because I've been following Reese's book club ever since it first started, you know, back in like, I don't know, 2017, 2018, 2019, like somewhere around that time. And I do appreciate how, you know, with Reese Witherspoon's book club, she is always highlighting female authors. Every single one of her book club picks features a female protagonist, and then it's really like about a female's story. That's something that I've always loved about Reese Witherspoon's book club picks. I also really love that with Reese's book club, she's always picking from a wide variety of genres because she's had a lot of thriller picks, a lot of romance picks, there's a lot of historical fiction and like literary fiction. And I do think for the most part, I think our tastes do align on most things. I actually made a few little graphics to kind of show you where our tastes have aligned so far. These are some books that she's had for her book club that I have really enjoyed so far. A lot of these were 5 stars for me, and then some towards the bottom, like romantic comedy, Starling House, and Mother-Daughter Murder Night, those were more in like the 3-star territory, but I still enjoyed them. But like some of these are some of my all-time favorite books, like Yellowface, Little Fires Everywhere, The Light We Lost, The Nightingale, The Guest List, even 7 Days in June. Like these are all books that I would consider to be some of my all-time favorites. But then I also made a graphic for these are some of her books that I either didn't care for or I personally DNF'd pretty early on. I mean, there's certain books like Where the Crawdads Sing and like Wrong Place, Wrong Time and Such a Fun Age. Like I can definitely see why others would enjoy those. They just didn't necessarily work for me for one reason or another. And then there are some books on here that I actually very strongly disliked, like The Other Woman and The Proposal. I just couldn't get on board with. But then there are still a number of books that are still on my TBR that have been some of her book club picks that I'm still interested in reading. The ones that especially intrigue me on this list is, of course, Our Missing Hearts by Celeste Ng because of how much I loved Little Fires Everywhere. And then we have Honey and Spice is a romance that I've been interested in for such a long time, as well as Untamed for a nonfiction book. That's one that I'm really interested in reading. And Tiny Beautiful Things because it's the same author as Wild. But all of these books are books that I still had on my personal TBR that have been Reese book club picks in the past. And so far this year for Reese's picks of 2024 so far, 2 of the months I actually already owned the books and I had them on my TBR, and then the other 2 were books that were not really on my radar and that I don't know if I ever would have picked them up myself. But the first book that I'm going to be reading for this video that was the January selection is First Lie Wins by Ashley Elston. This is one that I was actually really excited to find out that it was a Reese pick because this is a book that I already owned, it was already on my TBR, and I already had plans to read it. And then the second book that I'll be reading for this video is her February pick, which is Redwood Court. I was actually able to get my hands on the audiobook from my library for this one, but this one is more of a fiction / historical fiction novel. And this one is actually a debut novel as well. It says we're following one unforgettable Southern Black family seen through the eyes of its youngest daughter as she comes of age in the 1990s. And then the third book that I'll be reading for this video is her March pick, which is Anita de Monte Laughs Last, which this is another one that, you know, I checked out this book from my library. This one wasn't really on my radar personally, even though I do actually own the first book from this author, which is Olga Dies Dreaming. I still have that one over on my bookshelf back here, but I haven't read it yet. And this one is also a fiction, kind of like historical fiction type of literary fiction kind of book. It's about a first-generation Ivy League student who uncovers the genius work of a female artist decades after her suspicious death. And then the fourth and final book that I'll be reading for this video is her April pick, which is the most fun we ever had. And believe it or not, but I actually had this book on my TBR shelf. I was so excited when she announced this as the April pick because this is a book that's been sitting on my unread shelf for so long. It's really cool too because with Reese's book club, every now and then she'll throw in a backlist title because most of her picks are new release books that are coming out the month that she's announcing them as the book club picks. But then every now and then she'll announce a book club pick that's a backlist book, and this one actually first published in 2019. I had this one on my personal TBR because I always heard that this was a literary fiction novel that was like a really good family drama that reminded people a lot of Little Women is what I've heard because we're following 4 daughters in this book. Those are the 4 books that I'm going to be reading for today today's video. I'm so excited to finally be getting in on this project. However, before we do jump into the reading, I just wanted to take a second to thank today's video sponsor, which is HelloFresh. I mean, I know that we've all had those nights where we just stare at the fridge thinking, what am I gonna eat for dinner? And now would be the perfect time to give HelloFresh a try and dig into their biggest menu yet with over 45 recipes to choose from weekly. I think whether you're trying to eat better, save money, or just stress less about dinner in general, I think HelloFresh is such a great option because you can get fresh ingredients delivered right to your door, so you don't have to worry about grocery shopping. You don't have to worry about when you miss that one item that you needed to make that dinner that you wanted to make, because everything just gets delivered right to your door and they give you exactly what you need for each recipe, which I also really love because it definitely eliminates a lot of the food waste that I experience otherwise when I'm trying to like grocery shop myself. I've been using HelloFresh for a little over 2 years now, and I have genuinely found some of my favorite recipes of all time from HelloFresh. Even though sometimes like I'm not the best cook, but I think there's something about the step-by-step directions with pictures. They make it so easy to make any recipe. Just go onto their app every week and select the recipes that are calling your name the most. Last night when I made these garlicky fried chicken sandwiches with honey mustard mayo and roasted carrots, oh my gosh, this turned out even better than I was imagining that it would. I'm a really huge fan of HelloFresh's chicken sandwiches. Honestly, any of their sandwiches or their burgers are some of my favorite meals that I've ever had from HelloFresh, but this chicken sandwich was absolutely incredible. I really loved the flavor too of the honey mustard mayo. So you can go to hellofresh.com and use my code gabbyreads for free dessert for life. That is one dessert item per box while your subscription is active. And that's code gabbyreads at hellofresh.com so you can get free dessert for life. That is such a great deal, especially for somebody who has a really big sweet tooth like I do. So you can visit the link down in my description box below to go and check it out. Thank you so much to HelloFresh for sponsoring today's video, and now let's get on to the reading vlog. I'll send you back to about a week ago when I started on First Lie Wins.
First Lie Wins by Ashley Elston. Such a fun read. There's so many twists and turns, and I just couldn't put it down. If you're looking for a fascinating read in 2024, follow along with Reese's Book Club. Pick up First Lie Wins.
Started with First Lie Wins. I'm not gonna lie, you know, this book was the book that I was most excited to read for this video just because it's the thriller pick. I mean, this is definitely the one that I would most likely pick up even if I wasn't doing this video, just because it's a popular thriller that's making the rounds. Everybody seems to be loving this. And I actually picked up this book right now knowing that it's a really popular thriller, but not knowing a single thing about it. Like, I didn't even read the premise of this. And now I'm about 115 pages into this book and I'm like, oh no, because it actually has one of my like least favorite thriller tropes, or like least favorite thriller type of stories happening in this. So what I didn't realize about this book when I picked it up is that it was gonna be the type of story where like our main character is like a con artist or like a spy of some kind. So this premise, it says that we're following this character named Evie Porter, but the catch is that Evie Porter does not actually exist. It says the identity comes first. Once she's given a name and location by her mysterious boss, Mr. Smith, she learns everything about there is to know about the town and the people in it, and then the mark, Ryan Summer. So I guess like her client, who's this like mysterious Mr. Smith man, gives her this guy that she like needs to get close to, I guess, and his name is Ryan. And so she becomes the girlfriend of this guy named Ryan. I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty bored with this, and if I was just reading this just on my own and not for a video, I probably would have DNF'd this already. Because at this point, I seriously doubt I'm gonna end up enjoying this book just because I don't care for thrillers that are about con artists and like spies. And there's something about the way this one is written already that is just not working for me. It's like she's trying to be super like sneaky and like one step ahead and like the first lie wins, like I'm always ahead of everybody else. And it's just kind of a little bit annoying. And I'm also finding like right at the beginning of this book, there are so many characters introduced. I was like, holy crap. I was taking notes on my phone to try and keep track of them all. And then now we're doing this thing too where we're getting flashbacks of this character like 10 years in the past. And now we're reading about these different like spy con artist things that she's done in the past and like how they went wrong and how she's improved over time as a con artist. Like, dude, I do not care. I'm sorry, I do not care about reading about con artists and like her stealing from people and like tricking the rich. But you know, for the sake of this video and following through on this project, I am gonna try to finish it just because, you know, this was a book that I was originally excited about anyways, or that I wanted to read because it's a really popular thriller right now. Maybe I should actually start like, you know, reading the book descriptions before I overhype them in my head. But anyways, who knows, maybe the ending of this book will surprise me. I'm still only about a third of the way in, so I think the plan for this afternoon, it's only about 1:30 right now. I think right now I'm gonna stay in bed and read for another like 30 minutes to an hour. I know my friends Gavin and Jan, they're doing reading sprints right now on Gavin's channel, so I've been watching those. Then later this afternoon, I did want to make a run down to Trader Joe's, even though Trader Joe's is kind of far, you know, it's like over 30 minutes away, but I need to get to Trader Joe's because this weekend I have to make a charcuterie board that I'm gonna bring over to my parents' house because we're having a get together this weekend and my mom asked me to bring a charcuterie board, and all of the local grocery stores, like, they don't have as good of stuff for charcuterie boards as Trader Joe's. You know, like Trader Joe's is the place you go to when you need to make a good charcuterie board because they got all the stuff. So like, I really need to go to Trader Joe's this afternoon. I would like to get that done. So I think I'm just going to continue listening to this one on audio throughout the day, and hopefully I'll be able to finish this one up today because something tells me it's going to be a quick read. The audiobook is only 9 hours long.
You're looking for someone I can't find it. Maybe we're meant to be a lost cause, but I can see a future that's brighter. Yeah, and if we both are in it, it's up to us. To make it right, to follow through.
Thank you so much. Thanks, you too.
I don't know what to do. To make it right, to follow through. It's up to us. So won't you give me your emotions? You've been hiding.
Many hours later, I have finished listening to First Lie Wins. Earlier today at Trader Joe's, it was so insanely crowded in there. Like, I was gonna try to film more while I was in the store, but then I got like anxiety about filming in public because there were literally so many people there. So apologies, I barely filmed anything. On the way home, it started pouring rain so freaking hard that I was like, oh my god, I can't even see the road. Like, it was coming down so hard. I did pick up Panda Express on the way home because, you know, I was in the area. It was right around the corner. I had to. It was so good. Yeah, the rain was crazy today. It hasn't poured this hard of rain this consistently, like, for a few hours straight in such a long time. Like, it looks like it's already flooding in our backyard, so I'm a little concerned about that. But the rain has been amazing, like sound-wise. It's been so nice to be all cozy in the apartment and just hear the rain downpouring like that. But anyways, I finished reading First Lie Wins. You know, something that I did think was a little bit surprising is that, not that there was like a plot twist of sorts, but there was something that happened in the plot like right after I finished updating you that I was like, oh wait, like that's kind of interesting. Like, I didn't see that part coming, or I thought it was like an interesting moment that happened. I don't necessarily think it's like a plot twist that happened, but it was just something added to the plot that I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Like, maybe I'm kind of getting back into it. And I had hopes that this could be something that I would enjoy, but then the more that I kept reading, oh my god, it just fell back into being like so boring. I feel like the story was bogged down by a lot of flashback chapters that I just didn't care for. I mean, I barely even cared enough about the actual present day chapters, and so the flashback chapters just made me feel even more bored. I was reading a lot of Goodreads reviews after I finished reading this because I was trying to see what everybody else sees in this, because a lot of people just seem to be loving this book. And out of all the negative reviews I was looking at, I really agreed with some of the negative reviews that were saying this book, it really just boils down to two things for me, and that's boredom and disbelief, because the ending, I was just like, bitch, what? I feel like this is one of those books where you definitely have to like suspend your disbelief a little bit, which I don't always mind in thrillers, but because this one was already kind of slow and boring to me, it was just like another thing that I didn't care for. I also saw this one Goodreads review Emily made. She said, to me this read like a very cheesy undercover agent thriller, and like that is exactly how I feel about this. I don't know why stories like this where there's like an undercover agent spy character, it just feels so cheesy. Like sometimes I think these kind of storylines can work for me in like movies or like TV show format, but for some reason in the book format it just feels so cheesy, so cringy. So I mean, take my review with a grain of salt, you know, because I knew at the start of this, I was like, I don't know if this is gonna be my thing or not, because I don't like reading about con artists and like spies and things like that. So if those are things that you typically do enjoy in your thrillers, then who knows, you might end up loving this one. I mean, clearly everybody else seems to be really loving this one. So I think I'm gonna be in the minority with the fact that I'm probably gonna give this 2 stars. It just didn't really do anything for me personally. It's very forgettable. I finished reading this book like maybe 3 hours ago and I'm already forgetting the finer details about it. Like, it is literally that forgettable to me. So unfortunately for me, it's a 2 star. We're off to a little bit of a rough start.
Today, our February book is here. Redwood Court by Delana R.A. Demeron. Check out a copy of it. I think you're gonna love it.
I have finished listening to Redwood Court. I would have came back and updated you sooner, like throughout the process of reading this, but I've actually been listening to this on audio now for like 3 to 4 days. And the only reason that I never came to update you is because I didn't really know what to say. Because this is definitely one of those literary fiction books where it's really like slice of life. It's not really plot driven at all. It's definitely character driven, but also it's the kind of story where like not that much really happens in this story. I can definitely see on Goodreads why this one is mostly getting like 3-star reviews across the board. It actually has a pretty low average rating on Goodreads. It has like a 3.3 out of 5 right now, which is pretty low for something that's literary fiction like this. But I think it's because this is definitely one of those kind of like slow burn character driven stories where not that much really happens. And I feel like stories like this can be very hit or miss for me. It really just depends on the writing style. But for me, I think this one's gonna fall at probably like a 2.5 stars, because there were definitely some things that I enjoyed about reading this book, but there were a lot of things that I found to be really difficult with this one. So Redwood Court, it's this family saga, and we follow this Black family who's living in South Carolina, but we follow like multiple generations in this family. So this one definitely has that like historical fiction kind of feel to it. But the main primary point of view that we're getting in this book is from this young girl named Micah, and she's growing up and coming of age in the 1990s. I really did like the 1990s setting, but otherwise, like a lot of the other perspectives in this book just really bored me. I was immediately intimidated though with this book because right at the beginning, and you know, keep in mind, I was listening to this on audio. So right at the beginning, there's a character list, and this audiobook narrator just lists off like, I don't know, 20 fucking characters maybe. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, do I have to keep track of this? Like, what the heck is going on? The first opening sentence of this book says, "My grandpa Tita says I am the second and last daughter of Rena, who is the only daughter of Weesey, who was the first daughter of Lady, who was the secret daughter of Big Sis, who was born to Sarah, who came from Ezra, the adopted daughter of Ruth, who adopted her because Ezra was a slave and was sold without her mama, but the story was Ezra's mama had 13 children, depending on who asked and depending on if you counted those unborn and born dead." Like, I'm sorry, what? That was so many characters and like names right off the bat. So I was definitely struggling. I'm not gonna lie, this is definitely the kind of book where in the first 50% of it, I actually considered DNFing it a few times because I just found it so difficult to like adjust to not only this writing style, but also like there are just so many characters. And especially when I'm only listening to it on audio, I really struggle with like keeping all of the characters straight. And this writing style in general was just kind of difficult for me because the perspective would change a lot, like mid-chapter sometimes. And it was just hard to keep in my head like, okay, who are we even following right now? I think part of the reason why this book felt kind of random to me at times and why I struggled to connect with it is because every chapter was just like random stories about this family to the point where they didn't even feel like they really connected at all. It was just because it was all the same kind of like family saga story being told, but it was just kind of confusing because every chapter just kind of read like a random short story and none of the chapters really felt like they connected in a way. I do think though this book could have been more interesting for me if we only focused on like Micah's point of view, because I did like reading about her point of view when she was growing up in the 90s. I thought it was interesting. I feel like this is one of those stories where I can really see why this would work for some people and then why this would really not work for certain people. I think I fall somewhere in the middle. So that's really unfortunate, you know, that we're starting off this vlog with reading the first 2 books and so far I haven't found anything that I've enjoyed.
I've been thinking of how to leave you, just to leave you first.
Hello, hi, how's it going? It's been so long since the last time that I updated this vlog. It's actually been like probably like a week and a half, if not a little bit longer, because I have been reading Anita Monte Laughs Last for quite some time. I actually started reading this about a week and a half ago. I read the first 50 pages and I was like, oof, I felt a strong urge that I wanted to DNF this book, but I was so upset because like I keep feeling that way about every single book that I'm reading for this video. I don't know what is the curse of Reese Witherspoon's book club with me, but like I am not connecting with any of these these picks. And so I was really frustrated with myself. I was like, okay, just take a break from it for a week. I've been reading some thrillers in between reading this because I wanted to read books that were in my taste so that I could give this book a fair chance. And now I am about 100 pages into this book and I'm so sorry, but this has to be a DNF for me. I can't get into this. I can't stand this book. I don't want to read it. So in this story, we're following these two characters. One of them is named Anita and we're following her in 1985. And then years later in 1998, we're following this character named Raquel. Both of these women are involved in the art scene. Raquel is actually an art student at this like prestigious college. And then Anita was a rising star in the art world and she was living in New York City in 1985. And right at the beginning of this book, the opening chapter, we follow Anita's character as she says she either fell, jumped, or got pushed out of this window and fell to her death. And so we know that her death was under suspicious circumstances. So then I think this book, in the premise, it says how this book is about how this student, Raquel, she starts to dig up Anita's story and how she's gonna like find out the truth of what really happened to her. But so far in this book, 100 pages in, if I hadn't read the premise, I would not know the first thing about how these two characters are connected because there is nothing connecting them so far. We're just jumping back and forth Anita's perspective, and then we get Raquel's perspective in 1998, but then we also get Jack's perspective from 1985, which is the guy that Anita was like romantically involved with, that they think that he could have been the one who pushed her. And I'm sorry, but after 100 pages in, I just don't think I can continue with this because not only do I not really care about any of these characters, in fact, they're driving me all a little bit crazy, to be honest. I can tolerate Jack's perspective on audio, I can tolerate Raquel's perspective on audio, but for some reason, Anita's perspective on the audiobook is driving me crazy, dude. Like her voice, it's so shrill. Everything is so dramatic and so over the top. I literally just read this one line that was on page 86 where Anita says, sure, it was all a little bit dramatic, but you know what? I'm a bit dramatic. So what? And I'm like, yeah, you are a bit dramatic. Not only that, like the characters are definitely a little bit over the top and dramatic for me, but like if I have to read one more pretentious conversation about art and like paintings and like creating art and like being an artist, I really just don't think this book is for me because I don't care about reading about artists. I do think if you're the kind of person that gets really invested in like the art world, I think this might be right up your alley because there's definitely a lot of conversations about art and the creation of art and looking at art. And there's also a lot of conversations specifically about women in art and creating art and how difficult it can be to be a woman and not feel as seen as your male counterparts. This book is so feminist, which I think it's a great thing. Like, don't get me wrong, I think it's really great that a lot of Reese Witherspoon's book club picks that I've noticed, you know, she really focuses on these stories that feel very feminist, right? And I think that's a really great thing because I do think that we need more stories like this. But at the same time, there's something about these books that it just feels like the feminism is it's so on the nose, you know, it's so like in your face about it. Like these conversations about like, oh, well, why do we have women's art and men's art? We should just have art. Like we should all be inclusive. And like, I get that these conversations matter and that they're relevant, but it's also just like, it's like beating you over the head with this feminist message just over and over and over again. I guess I just really appreciate more subtlety when it comes to social commentary like this in my books. And that's something that I've noticed about a lot of Reese Witherspoon book club picks, is that the feminism is just so like beating you over the head with it, when I just want it to be a little bit more subtle with the feminism. I don't know. I don't even know how to properly say how I feel about that or if I'm wording it correctly, because I don't want to come across like I don't care about feminism in books, because I definitely do, and I know that these messages are important, but it's just something about the way that these are written. It just feels way too on the nose. It's like the author's just trying way too hard to like get their message across. And I don't know, for me this story is feeling so like slow burn and so slice of life, and because I don't actually care about any of these characters, I just don't see myself rating this very high. Like I don't care about what direction the story's going in. You know what was interesting too is I was just looking through a bunch of different Goodreads reviews for this book because I wanted to see if anybody could vocalize like how I was feeling about it. But I was noticing a lot of people on Goodreads were talking about the fact that this book is actually inspired by a real life human, and her name was Anna Mendita, I think is how you say her name. And a lot of people were criticizing this book and giving it 1 star because I guess the book never properly addresses this real life person that this author based the story off of. A lot of people were really upset and saying like, may Anna rest in peace, and like her name should have been mentioned in this book. So I mean, obviously I haven't read the whole book, like, and I don't know if it's mentioned in the acknowledgements or not, but I just saw a lot of people saying that they were uncomfortable with the fact that this was actually based off a real person or a real artist, and there was no mention of that in here. So I think that's also something to keep in mind if you're thinking about reading this one. one. I do think that's such a, you know, important and kind of like relevant discussion that a lot of people are having these days, is like, whose story do we have the right to even tell? Because if this is based off of like a true real life human, then I do think there's like some level of like getting consent or like permission to write a story like this, right? Unfortunately, this one's gonna be a DNF for me. I just can't see myself pushing through this. It's literally making me not want to read, and that kind of defeats the whole purpose. So literally, I feel terrible about this, but so far Reese is 0 for 3 with me. Like, I am not having a fun time with this. I was actually talking about this with my Patreon earlier. I'm doing Patreon reading sprints right now, and I was talking about this earlier today, how I was like, you know, if this Reese Witherspoon vlog doesn't go well, then maybe I can like rework what this video series is going to be going forward. Because the whole idea for this is that I wanted to do like a year long of reading the Reese Witherspoon book club picks. Because this first one is not going well at all, it's like making me really not motivated to want to do 2 more of these episodes later on this year. But what we were talking about on my Patreon, they have so many great ideas. They were saying that I should do a series like this where I test out the different celebrity book clubs. So like maybe instead of doing Reese's next 4 picks, maybe I can do like Good Morning America's next 4 picks and do something like that. There's another big book club called Read with Jenna, and then there's another one like Jimmy Fallon has a book club. So I thought maybe I could turn this video series into like testing out celebrity book clubs every quarter, and then at the end of the year I can make a video saying like which book club does my taste align with the most. Like maybe that would be something cooler to do, because so far it's not going well with Reese Witherspoon, and I'm really sad because I really love Reese Witherspoon and I respect her a lot as a human and an actress, and I just really adore her in general. But so far our book club tastes are not aligning, at least for this year. I mean, unless, you know, she picks 4 books coming up that I'm just absolutely excited and dying to read and they seem like they would be more my taste, then maybe I'll continue with this video series. But I do think it might be a cool option. It actually sounds really fun to try and test out different book clubs. Like, I think that could be a really fun idea. So let me know what you think about that for future episodes. But anyways, we have 1 book left for this video. Reese Witherspoon picked another literary fiction book, and this one's over 500 pages. Like, this bitch is trying to kill me. Hello friends, I wanted to update you because I have started on the most fun we ever had. I'm currently about 124 pages into this book, and in a shocking turn of events, I'm actually really liking this one so far. I'm really loving it. This is already giving me 4 or maybe even 5-star energy, and I'm completely shocked because I thought for sure that this video was going to be a complete and epic fail. This book is reminding me a lot of Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng, which is like one of my favorite books of all time. It's also kind of giving me Little Women vibes, which is also one of my favorite books of all time. And in this story, this is kind of like one of those literary fiction family drama kind of stories where we're following these characters. So the main story is happening between these characters Marilyn and David, and then we kind of follow their story as they kind of like fell in love with each other in the 1970s. But then the main story of this book is taking place in 2016, and Marilyn and David, they both have 4 daughters, and so we're kind of following their daughters in the year of 2016 when they're all adults. And so they have these 4 daughters. You know, we have the daughter Wendy, who's the oldest daughter, and she's actually recently widowed. She was widowed very young. Her husband died. And then we have this other daughter named Violet. We have Liza, and then we have Grace, who's the youngest one. And because of the whole, you know, 4 daughters thing, it's definitely reminding me a lot of Little Women. Like, it has that vibe where there's just like 4 sisters, you know, like they all have very big personalities. But the main storyline that's happening in this book is one of the sisters, Violet, when she was like a younger teenage girl, she had this baby that nobody in her family even knew that she had except for her other sister, Wendy, the oldest sister. She told her parents that she was like studying abroad or something like that, and she was literally living with her older sister, and she gave birth to this baby boy, and she ended up giving him up for adoption 15 years ago. And now that we're taking place in 2016, it's 15 years after she's put him up for adoption, and they find out that his adoptive parents have recently died in a car accident, and so he's gonna be getting put back into foster care. And it's kind of a situation where the older sister, Wendy, is the one who finds out about it, and so she lets Violet know. But the thing that's really difficult about this is that now Violet, you know, like, she's married to this man. They have their own 2 sons together that are very young. Violet's character is really afraid of this, like, disrupting their lives, especially with her 2 younger sons. So the older sister, Wendy, actually suggests that she can take him in because, you know, Wendy has been recently widowed and she's kind of dealing with a lot in her life, and she doesn't have any children of her own, so she decides to take him in, which, you know, the younger sister Violet is still happy about because she still wants the boy in her life. And so this is about how, you know, this kid Jonah, who's now 15 years old, he's kind of getting reintroduced to this whole family. And then in between the chapters that take place in 2016 when we're reading about the current day's events, we also do get other chapters that are flashbacks to the 1970s where we can read about how Marilyn and David actually met when they were younger and how they ended up having these girls in the first place. I am just really connecting with this book so far. I'm really loving the writing style. I'm loving all of the characters. Like, they feel so real and well fleshed out, and I feel like each one of the sisters has a very distinct personality. I really love family drama kind of stories like this where the families are very complex and very complicated, and especially when there's like some kind of adoption that's involved with family stories like this, I also find that very interesting. I do think this author, like, the way that she writes, it is a little bit like wordy at times, but it's also just so beautifully written that I don't really mind it. I mean, this book is over 500 pages. I feel like the father character in this book, David, I'm especially loving his character because he's reminding me so much of my own dad. And it's crazy because, like, my dad's name is also David, but the way that one of the daughters, like, talks about him, she asks him, like, how he is on the phone, and he starts to, like, really talk about his day and just dive into, like, what's been going on with him. And she thinks to herself, her how are yous were rarely ever met by her father with anything but, oh, fine, tell me about yourself. He didn't usually talk about himself. It occurred to her that it must be hard to be the only man in a family full of women, hard to get a word in edgewise, hard to prioritize your own emotions over those of everyone else. And I was like, that is so my dad. Like, my dad is so the type of guy to just be like, yeah, I'm fine, everything's fine. Like, he doesn't really insert his emotions into anything, you know? And I think it's because my dad is so used to being in a family full of women who, like, we all have so many emotions, like me and my sister and my mom, you know, like, we are all very emotional people. And so I just really connected with that, and I feel like my dad would really connect to that as well. I also just really love the way that these daughters, like, view their parents and how much, like, love and respect that they have for their parents. Like, I really connected with that too. This one line literally almost made me emotional thinking about my parents, because she says other people probably didn't miss their parents this much. She could picture her dad leaning against the kitchen counter drinking lukewarm coffee, and this was what worried her the most. Nothing had ever felt as comfortable, as easy, and as good as being with her parents and her family. No one, it seemed, would ever regard her with the same enthusiastic awe as her mother, the same quiet, feverish pride as her father. It aroused concern within that she was slated for a lifetime of disappointment from the outside. Is that not beautiful? Like, I love that. I love that. I relate to that. I connect with that. I think my mom and my dad are 2 of the people that I'm closest to in this world, and I'm so lucky to have such incredible parents who are so supportive and they just always meet me with such enthusiasm and so much support. And I just really loved reading that. It just really warmed my heart. I connected with it. And I'm really connecting with these characters and this family. So things are going incredibly well so far. I am so glad that I decided to continue with this video so that I could pick up this book. But anyways, it's about 4:30 in the afternoon. I think I'm gonna go downstairs and try to make something for dinner, and then hopefully maybe read a little bit more of this tonight, and I will keep you updated on my thoughts as I have more of them.
Goes round and round in circles, but I'm still on the ground.
Hello, Hi, it is the next afternoon. I have had such a busy 24 hours. I mean, last night after dinner, I was actually just laying in bed reading more of this book last night. And then this morning, me and my sister, we went grocery shopping. We went to both Winco and Costco, and it took literally forever. It took like 4 hours. And so that really took up most of my morning, but I wanted to update because I have still been reading quite a bit. I now just hit part 4 of the book and I'm about 323 pages in. And I'm so happy to say that I'm still really loving this one. I'm just really connecting with these characters. Like, there's just something about the way that this book is written that I'm just absolutely loving. I really like how in the different parts of this book, like the book is broken up into different seasons. So like with part 4, I just hit winter, but I also like how within each part of the book, we do a lot of flashing back to like the 1970s when Marilyn and David met. And then we also do get the present day stories of all of the daughters. But like all the daughters are facing such different and like unique hardships. Like because of the different things they have going on in their lives, it's really making them reflect a lot on their childhood. And I think I'm particularly interested in the characters Wendy and Violet. I feel like the story is really, centered around them and what's going on with them. But because Wendy is like, the oldest daughter, I just feel like I really connect to her on a different level. But Violet also definitely has to be one of the most interesting characters in this book for me, just because at any given time, I really like what's going on in her story. I just feel like there's a lot going on with her that really fascinates me. I think if I had to pick a least favorite out of the 4 daughters that we're following so far, I think Grace, she's like the youngest daughter, and I feel like she's the weakest character for me out of the 4 daughters. But oh my god, I love David and Marilyn. I love their characters. Like, I love their relationship with each other. I love that it's very complex. And like, I really love the way that these girls like look up to their parents. I just think it's like really beautiful and really wholesome. I also appreciate the conversations in this book about motherhood in general and like how difficult motherhood can be, especially if you're like not in the best mental place when you're having children versus like being in a much better mental place when you're having more children. I love, there was this one moment where Marilyn was kind of like reflecting on her time with one of her daughters. I love how she says she could never explain this to her daughter. You made me recognize that my heart is in fact a bottomless hole of simultaneous pleasure and despair. She could never say, you gave my life meaning and you ruined it at the same time. I just love the brutal honesty of how like kids can really impact your life in a great way and in a negative way at the same time. I think that's really true for a lot of people. Because yeah, even though most people are probably really excited about the fact that they're having children and that mostly their lives are impacted positively by children, I think it's really honest to say like, yeah, you kind of took away some opportunities for me as well by being born. And I just appreciate the honesty with like her perspective on motherhood. I mean, she's never voicing these things to her daughter, but it is also just really refreshing to read from Marilyn's perspective and to read from the perspective of a mother who is grateful for her children and loves her children, but also at the same time can recognize those things. So yeah, that's the update. I'm loving it a lot. I think I'm going to try and finish this up tomorrow. It still says that I have 8 hours left of the audiobook. Like, I feel like I've been listening to this forever, but I'm honestly like fine with it because usually I complain all day long about like a long book or a long audiobook, but this one I'm just really enjoying my time with it, so I don't mind that it's taking me a little bit longer to get through this. But anyways, I am really excited for tonight. You might notice that I have my August D shirt on, and that is because me and my mom are going to be going to see D-Day in theaters. I mean, don't get me wrong, he is still away in military right now, but they're taking the concerts that he did from the end of August last year and they're bringing them into theaters in IMAX, and they're like a cinematic cut. So it's gonna be like extra HD and in IMAX, and I am not ready for this. Like, I am so not ready. And August D or like Yoongi in BTS, like he is my bias, and I am so excited for tonight. So I'm gonna be going to pick up my mom. We're probably gonna go and get Mexican food for dinner, and then we're gonna watch this movie. Hi, how's it going? It is the next night. Last night I went and saw D-Day with my mom in theaters. Dude, it was the best. It was so much fun. Not only did my movie theater have these popcorn buckets, which I was really shocked because I did not think that my theater would have these, and it's like really nice. It's like freaking tin. And so I've just been putting a bunch of snacks in here and keeping this on my desk today, but it was so much fun to go to this movie. ARMY, like BTS fans, like they are literally the nicest people you will ever meet in your life. Like these girls were handing out photo cards. It was so cute. And then I was actually talking talking to 2 other girls that also said that they flew out to LA last year to go and see D-Day, which I did as well. It was just so cool to know that there are other people in my area who like fly out to LA to go and see BTS. Like, that is so cool. I was a little bit salty that they cut people out of the set list of the concert, and then also the fact that they kept censoring him. I don't know why every time he would cuss, whether it was in Korean or in English, they would censor him and completely mute him, and that was really annoying to me because I was like, what is the point? Like, who is this concert for? Like, I'm sorry, but there are no children here. And then today when I woke up, I was kind of feeling like I had a sore throat or something, so I literally just laid in bed all day and finished listening to this one on audio. And I actually just finished listening to this a few minutes ago, and like, oh my god, I feel like emotionally gutted right now. I feel like my heart has been stepped on. I loved this. I love this so much. Like, I don't know if it was a perfect 5-star for me. I think it feels more right for me to give this around a 4.5 stars. And I don't even know why it doesn't get the full 5 stars for me. It just doesn't feel like it's on the same level as like some of my top favorite books of all time. But like, holy shit, dude, I loved this so much. There was one scene, it fucking got me, dude. I was like, tears, oh my gosh. It was just so sad. It was so beautiful. I tabbed so many things. There were so many beautiful moments in this book, and I feel like this has got to be one of the best like complicated family drama stories that I've ever read. Like, I really connected with this family. I really loved all of the characters. I thought every single one of the sisters was like so well fleshed out and so interesting, and like the drama that was actually happening with this family, like, oh, it was like the fucking tea, dude. Like, there were some things happening that I was like, oh my gosh, like side eye. It was just really entertaining, okay? And like this kid, Jonah, like he's the 15-year-old kid that kind of gets like adopted back into the family. I loved this kid. I loved him. I thought he was so great. And like, I just loved reading about him and like reading about his perspective and like the connection that he has to the family and like the life that he's had. He was just such an interesting character, and like all the characters were just so great, and I just really felt connected to all of them. Like, it feels like such a great accomplishment when you finish a book like this that's like 500 plus pages, but then it also feels like kind of sad at the same time because I feel like I've really gotten emotionally invested in these characters. Now that the story's over, I'm just like, oh, okay. Like, what am I supposed to do now, you know? So I am completely shocked and flabbergasted that I ended up loving this one as much as I did. I mean, I might just go ahead and bump it up to 5 stars. I mean, I don't know. I can't pinpoint anything that I didn't like about this, so I feel like maybe I should just give it 5 stars and stop being such a critical ass bitch all the time. Because like, this did make me emotional. It made me emotional. I connected with the family. I loved the sisters, especially Wendy and especially Violet. I feel like they had the most interesting storylines to me, but I did love all the sisters. Like, I thought Liza and Grace both had really interesting storylines as well. And there was just so many topics covered in this book, like not just, you know, like having a baby when you're very young and then the conversation about adoption, but this book had so many different kinds of conversations. I think there was a lot of conversations about like what happens when you disappoint your family who doesn't deserve it, and like when you have parents who are like literally the nicest people on this earth, and then you start to wonder like, why am I like the way that I am? Like, why am I so angry? I really loved the complicated relationships that the sisters had with each other because there wasn't a lot of trust there, and like they were keeping some really big secrets from each other, and it was just so interesting to see everything unravel. I feel like this is very comparable to the TV show This Is Us, which I loved. This Is Us, like that was one of my favorite shows, and I'm so sad that it's over, but this definitely has that same feel to it. But wow, I really loved this, and I didn't think that I would love it as much as I do, and I'm so glad that I ended up reading this for this vlog and because of Reese Witherspoon's book club, because I was really thinking that this video was gonna end up feeling like a complete dumpster fire and like everything, I was just gonna shit on everything, and I didn't want to do that, you know, like I don't want to be a hater. I never want to be a hater, and so I'm really glad that I ended up having one that I absolutely loved and like fell in love with, and like this is probably gonna be one of my top favorite books that I've read this year. I would really like to know if you have read this book, then let me know what you think about it, because this one has been out quite a bit of time. This one's been published since 2019, so this one has been out for a couple of years now, and I would love to know what you think about it if you've read this book, and I would also love to know what you think of this kind of video in the future, and if this is still something you would like to see from me. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, at this point in time, I'm kind of torn on whether or not I want to continue doing these kind of videos for Reese's book club specifically. I mean, even though I just found a new 5-star, now I'm like, well, maybe I should continue with it, because this is where me and Reese, this is where our taste aligns, you know what I'm saying? I knew it was there, I knew it could happen, and it happened, and I'm glad that it happened. I think it really just depends on what these next 4 book club picks are gonna be for Reese Witherspoon, because, you know, as I mentioned earlier in this vlog, I do think it could be fun to like test out the other celebrity book clubs every quarter of the year, and then do something like that where I can just see how my taste aligns with the different celebrity book clubs. So let me know what you would prefer. Like, let me know if you would want to see a round 2 and a round 3 of Reese Witherspoon's book club picks for the rest of this year, or you can let me know if you would rather that I just test out some other celebrity book clubs. So definitely let me know what sounds the most appealing to you. And thank you so much for watching as always, and I'll see you very soon with another video. Bye!